Hello, and welcome to another segment where we're hoping to share with you what's going on in town. I want to take the opportunity to thank Mike Graziani, who's the other side of the camera, who continues to ensure that he gets on my calendar to do one of these things at least once a quarter. It's hard to believe it's already November. I think we did the last one in August, Mike, and this is we're early November. The weather is starting to turn. This morning, someone turned the heat off outside on us. I had to put on an overcoat or a coat. But it's also November, and I will apologize for the scruffiness of my face. For those of you who are familiar with a couple of activities that happen in November, one of them is No Shave November, and there's a variation of that is Movember. Both of them are designed to bring awareness to health issues. And this year I am participating in those activities. So I didn't forget to shave. This is on purpose. Let's get through a couple of items that I think are important to recount in terms of what we're doing, what we've accomplished, and where we're going. You may have noticed a significant amount of activity around town relative to activities on our sidewalks. Every year we allocate funds to repair, replace, or add new sidewalks. This year we had a little extra emphasis. You've probably noticed some of the construction vehicles on both the southeast corner of the green, directly across from Guilford Savings Bank. We made a substantial improvement on the sidewalk on the south side. Also up along the northwest portion of the green on Whitfield Street, we had some major repairs there. Obviously, we look regularly at the infrastructure to see where those sidewalks are failing and creating potential trip hazards. I want to thank Janice Plasiak, our town engineer, for staying vigilant and on top of that. Additionally, you may have noticed and been inconvenienced by the fact that those wonderful pavers that mark some of our crosswalks have been deteriorating over time. And this year we made an investment in replacing the cracked, broken pavers in those crosswalks. Lastly, as you travel down Whitfield Street, there is a traffic calming island as well as a crosswalk that also has pavers, and that has been consistently failing over the years, including a pothole, which is somewhat unusual because the bricks are still in place, but the bricks sank as if they were in a pothole. So we have started to remove those bricks owing to the concerns of continual maintenance and repair of those bricks in that crosswalk. Public Works organization has also been busy this summer and fall with their various road projects, including chip sealing over 7 miles this summer. That's down a little bit from what we traditionally like to do with chip sealing, and it is our plan in 2020 to add additional funds in the capital budget to accomplish some more chip sealing. We don't want to fall too far behind in the pattern of chip sealing and repairing some of our roads. That will leave us in a place of having to catch up dramatically in a couple of years. In terms of some other infrastructure projects, we currently have RFQs out on the street for engineering solutions to a couple of scenarios we have down in the Sachem's Head area. The Chimney Corners Circle area at high tide and particularly at extremely high tide, the roads are underwater, and we're looking at engineering designs to try to lessen the impact of those tides. and create a safe passage at those higher tides. Additionally, Falcon Road, which washed out last year and was repaired over the summer by our Public Works team, and actually did a tremendous job of rebuilding the seawall down there and repairing the road. That's an area that has, over the years, continued to be problematic in terms of damage from the storms. So we're also looking at alternative designs for Falcon Road, perhaps moving it further away from the seawall. But again, we are out to RFP, RFQ for engineering design considerations. Another project that is well underway is the Route 77 95 exchange. As you may recall, we had reallocated some alternative transportation funding money to constructing sidewalks, safe passage basically, from basically Adams Middle School up to the Guilford Racquet Club, because that is an area that sees a significant amount of pedestrian traffic, particularly among the youth. In this community. Adams students are traditionally going up to utilize the courts up at the basketball courts outside the police department, the arts center, as well as the Guilford Racquet Club, and there are also some medical offices directly across the street from the police department. It also is one of those areas that has a higher incidence of accidents. So we had made the commitment to investigate putting in sidewalks along that way. We are working with the State Department of Transportation and our local council of governments. We have selected an engineering firm, and in fact, earlier this week I sat with Chief Hutchinson, Chief Hershaft, and Town Engineer Janice Plasiak, and we reviewed the preliminary designs for that. One of the recommendations is to put in a traffic signal on the southbound exit. And we understand the state has already agreed that is a problematic area, and will be in support of putting in a traffic light at the bottom of the exit ramp on the southbound side. And unfortunately, only a week ago, we had a fatality, an accident that resulted in a fatality at that intersection. Someone coming off of the exit ramp, and I don't know the particulars of it, but there was an accident right at that intersection, and unfortunately, there was a fatality. So that project is moving forward. We are in the preliminary design phase of that, and we'll be working with the state. As soon as we meet with the state, we will then have but we will have a public hearing on this project where folks will get an opportunity to weigh in. Lastly, we have a grant of $350,000 for sidewalk construction, which was designed for Boston Street between Alderbrook Cemetery and hopefully all the way up to Route 1 at the top of the hill across from the water tower, which, for those who have been paying attention, is going to be taken down. A little diversion here. The water company no longer utilizes that tower and is in the process of preparing to dismantle it. However, the sidewalk project, which was a grant project, is well underway. We have just contracted with a surveying firm, and we'll be preparing the design documents, which will also have to be approved by the state of Connecticut and Department of Transportation, as Route 146 is in fact a state road. So that's sort of a highlight on some of the infrastructure construction projects that have been going on. I'd like to move to one of the task force that we have in place, and that's the Guilford Safe Streets Mobility Task Force, which has been which was formulated this summer and is off to a very good start. I had the opportunity to meet with the chairman, Sam Gerritz, briefly yesterday, and under Sam's leadership, I think they're going in exactly the right direction. They have decided to bifurcate their efforts and focus on two primary areas. One is policy, and the other is project. And policy is designed to incorporate a set of best practices, recommendations, policies that may actually influence some of our zoning approvals and potentially be part of the upcoming revision of the zoning code or the recodification of the zoning code, which is also a project that is underway. In terms of projects, what their hope is to do is to get some kind of consensus on some of the projects related to sidewalks. As you may recall, the Board of Selectmen had been presented with 5 petitions for very specific sidewalks in town. It is the thought that the committee can come to some kind of consensus in terms of the importance of connectivity via sidewalks and what the easy wins or the quick wins or quick hits can be. One of the things that we did when we constituted this task force was we allocated some money. There is $350,000 that has been allocated. This was actually done in cooperation with the Board of Finance, and that $350,000 is designed for any projects, some demonstration projects that committee thinks is appropriate. Of course, the process will include approval by the Board of Selectmen. There's another task force that has been underway and working diligently for nearly a year and a half now, and I'm going to give you a little sneak preview. All right. You're going to start to see this around town a little bit on some town stationery, some town notifications, etc. Sustainable CT. It's a statewide effort for that encourages municipalities to become certified as sustainably responsible communities here in the state of Connecticut. We recently learned after our submission in August that Guilford has attained the silver level of certification on the first application. There are 2 levels, bronze and silver, and the task force worked tirelessly, as I said, for over a year to produce the documentation that shows that Guilford has taken the steps and has embraced the tenets of sustainability as it relates to environmental sustainability, economic equity, and a variety of other pillars. There are cultural aspects of this. I encourage folks to take a look. Sustainable CT. Google it. Take a look at it, and you'll be impressed with the ideas that are part of this program, because this is what our community represents, in that we are working as a community to provide the citizens with the kind of quality of life and sustainability that they expect out of their community. So stay tuned for more information. We will receive an official award at CCM's annual meeting on December 3rd, and I congratulate the co-chairs Terry Kane and Mark Allegrini for their efforts in leading the 7-member task force and Guilford attaining that level of certification. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. You've heard some talk from me and others in the community about some of the initiatives we've taken related to housing. The first of which is we just recently received another $350,000, seems to be a popular number with grant money these days, a housing diversion award. This is part of the Community Development Block Grant, which is a federal program run through the Department of Housing, and in Connecticut it is administered through the Connecticut Department of Housing. What does housing diversion mean? Let me back up for a second. Homelessness is a problem that affects, that is not rampant throughout the state, but impacts a significant number of people throughout the state. You might be wondering, hey, Guilford doesn't have a homeless problem. We don't see people sleeping in alleyways or sleeping under bridges, etc. However, the reason Guilford doesn't have a homeless problem is because Guilford doesn't have the resources that those who find themselves homeless available to them. What we understand is a good number of folks who, when interviewed in the Greater New Haven metropolitan area, particularly downtown New Haven, when they identify their last residence, it wasn't necessarily New Haven. It may have been Guilford, it may have been Madison, it may have been Branford. The program that we applied for was a program that set aside money for suburban communities. So Guilford acted as the fiduciary agent in partnership with United Way to provide the shoreline communities with resources for those who are at risk of becoming homeless. It provides them with resources to navigate the various systems. Some of you may be familiar with the 211 network, which, like the 611 or 911, is designed to help folks who are facing housing crises and homelessness. This initiative is designed to put resources out in the community where there are, and there will be folks located in social service agencies throughout the shoreline, but in particular at the Women and Family Life Center. And those resources will help those who are at risk to identify sources of funding or programs that will enable them to stay in their homes. It does not provide them with outright grants, but it does provide them with the navigation tools to work through the system and take advantage of the programs that do exist out there. So we're thrilled to be the sponsoring fiduciary agent. It's a pass-through. Guilford will receive the funding, and then it will be distributed to the respective social service agencies that are administering the program. I wanted to give you an update on the housing rehabilitation program. This one goes back to an award that was granted in 2018, also part of the Small Cities Community Development Block Grant, and this is for housing rehabilitation. This program is designed to provide assistance for those who qualify. They're traditionally lower income folks who have health, safety issues within their homes. The program is a loan program where those individuals who qualify based on the need as well as the income thresholds get access to projects of new roofs, septic systems, windows, heating systems, air conditioning. It is a loan program that is at zero interest, and the loan is returned when the property turns over. This is a program that when I encountered it and I realized it was an opportunity in our community, I took advantage of it, and we engaged a consultant to help us manage the process of application. Lisa Lowe and Associates is our agent. They manage each and every one of these projects. We identified 42, we didn't identify, there were 42 self-identified applicants who were interested in the program when we originally applied. We needed to have 10 in order to qualify to submit an application. Today, there are 17 households in Guilford who are in some phase. Some of them have been completed. Some are currently in bidding. Some are actually being worked on. There are 17 households who qualified, and to date we have allocated around $350,000 for those 17 projects. So we're also thrilled that we're taking care of a portion of of our community who can use that assistance, and the impact will not be felt on them until such time as that property turns over. It's a great program, and the other benefit is once those properties turn over, that money then becomes available. It's a revolving fund for other folks to other folks to take advantage of. The last of the housing initiatives is the Affordable Housing Project, and I believe that we have had a significant amount, and maybe not everyone is aware of the project, but we have an initiative that's been going on for a couple of years. We've identified a site. It's behind the Woodruff property, between the Public Works facility and the daycare. After a feasibility study, this was identified as an appropriate location. We went out to bid for potential developers. We received 5 very, very strong bids. We narrowed it down to 3, and then the committee made a selection, and we are currently negotiating with that developer, and we hope to go to contract with them sometime in early December so that they can begin the process. The preliminary estimates are between 16 and 20 affordable housing units, which are at 60 to 80% of the average income here in Guilford. But this will provide much needed housing stock for those whose incomes are traditionally not sufficient to meet or to afford traditional housing here in Guilford. You might well remember that the state has some targets for every municipality to attain in terms of a percentage of affordable housing, and this will get us closer to the ball, but clearly we still have more work to do in this regard. I'd like to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about some decisions that we made, the Board of Selectmen made, with the recommendation of the Finance Director and in conjunction with the Board of Finance. In September, we took a look at where our fund balance and our surplus situations were, and we anticipate a very healthy surplus from the 2019 fiscal year, which ended on June 30th. And while we are continuing to add to our unassigned fund balance, we are now, even after some transfers that I'm going to talk about a little bit, we have about 10% of our operating budget in the unassigned fund balance, which is better known as a rainy day fund. The financial gurus, the rating agencies all suggest that you should be somewhere between, various numbers, but 7 to 12 or 15%. The town of Guilford adopted a policy that our fund balance should represent between 5 and 10% of our annual operating budget, and we're currently at the top of that threshold. So some of the money in excess can be used for some one-time projects. And the Board of Finance did approve the recommendation that the Board of Selectmen made to move some money. So we did a couple of things. We moved $425,000 from that surplus to our reevaluation account. Every 5 years, we have to do a reval of property, and that usually hits in 1 year. And it's a $400,000 to $500,000 anticipated expense. So we're going to pre-fund that so that in 3 years we don't have to go to the operating budget to accommodate that expense. Additionally, we've moved $400,000 into future facility projects. What are some future facility projects potentially? Well, the town purchased 52 Church Street for the potential of using that for expanded parking for our community center, which has inadequate parking today. There are some other projects that are being considered. The Guilford Food Pantry is in desperate need of rehabilitation or a new facility for that service. We have the opportunity to do something with the old science wing, and are contemplating working with the Board of Education on consolidating their various offices throughout town and creating that science wing as a Board of Education hub. So those are just a couple of the things that we might do with facilities. And Steve Neidorf, our facilities director, has a list of capital projects that could also benefit from some of those funds. And then we also, in recognition of the fact that we need to continue to stay ahead of our road maintenance, we allocated $400,000 for future road projects. And between Tom Fillion, our Public Works Director, and Janice Plasiak, we have a priority list of roads that we would like to address in the upcoming year. And this $400,000 will go a long way, and will also eliminate the need to put that in the operating budget for fiscal year 2021. So I want to thank the Board of Finance for agreeing to make these moves. There's one other move that we made relative to financing. The Town of Guilford and the Board of Education are self-insured for their insurance fund. Based on some changes to the respective plans and moving to HSA accounts, our healthcare costs have become more predictable, and we have built up a significant surplus in the that fund. That is an internal service fund, and we were up to a point where we had more money there than we thought was needed to keep a rainy day fund there. So we have moved. We have allocated $1 million from that fund, which is currently at about $6 million. And just to put it in perspective, our average monthly expenditure for healthcare costs is about 1.1 to 1.2, more $1.2 million per month. So our consultants suggest we ought to have 2 to 2.5, maybe 3 times the amount of money available in a rainy day fund to cover those monthly costs. So this still leaves us well within those parameters, but we're allocating this money to a fund that we established last year for other post-employment benefits. There are certain benefits that we pay based on contractual obligations over the years. However, those are they have diminished over time, and that liability is somewhat capped. But we do face, like a pension obligation, we do face a liability down the road. We have traditionally, like most municipalities, been on the pay-as-you-go system on other post-employment benefits. And in a snapshot, those are healthcare benefits for retirees. So, as I said, we have curtailed the granting of those benefits over time through the contracts. So that liability will not grow. But this will give us the opportunity to start to fund a trust for the other post-employment benefits, so we can potentially move away from the pay-as-you-go methodology and use the earnings from that trust fund to offset the cost on those retirees that we are currently providing those benefits to. Switching gears one more time, I wanted to give you a little update on the water main project. Many of you are aware of the effort to bring potable water down to 3 neighborhoods, the Mulberry Point, Tuttle's Point, and Long Cove area. This is a project that kicked off in June after, I think some will say, about 17 years of efforts to get this project moving. And as most of you are aware, there were significant issues with the availability of safe, clean drinking water for those neighborhoods. The project, as I indicated, kicked off in June. True Blue is the contractor, and we're getting great feedback from the community in terms of how interactive and how communicative they are with the neighbors. They're actually going door to door, knocking on doors and alerting them to progress and potential delays in access on the road based on the construction schedule. And at this point, they completed the work across the Fisher easement from Sachem's Head Road, and they are, I believe, they are just about completed on laying the pipe and the stubs along Lower Road. So that project continues to move along. There was a 18-month to 2-year window on that project, and it looks, if things continue the way they seem to be going, it's looking more like the 18-month window might be achieved. I have been working diligently with the Lamont administration, as well as Sean Scanlon, our state rep, and Christine Cohen, our state senator, to attain additional funding for this project. As some of you may be aware, the project came in at a significantly higher cost than had been originally anticipated when this was approved at referendum a couple of years ago. As you may also recall, all of the cost and all of the repayment for this project is borne by the residents who will have the opportunity to have water. There's 140 some odd homes in that area, and they will share in that cost. We had received some grant money. There's revolving loan money, but those anticipated expenses for those neighbors in those areas more than doubled as a result of us having to go back out to bid because the original contractor backed out, and it was apparent that the original cost estimates we had for that job were significantly less than what it turned out to be. So we continue to work to try to identify federal and state money to assist those affected by the dramatic price increase. On a personal note, I have had the opportunity over the past several months to fill in a position as the acting interim director at Tweed New Haven Airport. I've been on the board at Tweed New Haven Airport for about 4 years, and when the executive director left, there was considerable concern in terms of appointing a permanent replacement to that position. I was asked by my fellow board members if I would consider doing it on an interim basis, and at the time I thought interim basis was going to be 2 or 3 months. It's turned out to be significantly more than that, but the role that I played was largely as a caretaker. It was not a full-time role. I can't tell you how many times at lunchtime and evenings and so forth that I spent working on some of the issues associated with Tweed New Haven. But I find that it is essential for us to have a viable transportation center, an airport in the greater New Haven area, particularly to service the southern Connecticut region. It is for that reason that I had agreed to step in. I've been a proponent of the viability of Tweed New Haven as an economic driver, economic engine for southern Connecticut, not the least of which is if we have the ability to fly out of Tweed, why drive to Hartford? Why drive to Providence? Why drive to the airports in New York, or Westchester, LaGuardia, Kennedy, Newark? We have an opportunity right now because we won a court case allowing Tweed New Haven to extend the runway, and we have an opportunity today to make that a viable transportation hub so that consumers and business travelers have better choices for their business and leisure travel. But I'm also pleased to mention that Sean Scanlon, our state rep, is taking the job as the full-time executive director at Tweed New Haven. And as far as I'm concerned, and my wonderful wife is, it can't happen soon enough. It will actually happen on November 18th. So good luck to Sean, and I urge everyone in supporting the efforts to build Tweed into the kind of transportation hub that we desperately need to drive economic development and consumer satisfaction for Southern Connecticut. On to some more mundane topics. The budget season is upon us. We've already received the capital budgets from our department heads. The operating budgets will be presented to us at the end of December. The Board of Selectmen will hold workshops on January 22nd and 23rd, where those budgets will specifically be presented and defended by the department heads. The Board of Selectmen will then present our budget to the Board of Finance, as will the Board of Education on February 18th. Board of Finance will hold the hearings, as we do every year, a public hearing on March 3rd. And then they will conduct workshops on March 5th and possibly March 9th. And those are the opportunities for people to get engaged and involved and come out and let us know what you're thinking, learn about the budgets. They will be televised. Mike is always at all of those meetings. The annual budget meeting will take place on April 7th, and then the referendum is on the 21st of April. It's hard to imagine. This is November. Today is November 8th, and we're talking about a budget that will actually go into effect on July 1 of 2020. So we're a full 7.5 months, over 7.5 months out, but that's the planning process that we're currently in. I also want to take the opportunity to mention a couple of things. Tonight I will have the honor of attending a dinner hosted by the American Legion, and it is in honor of the veterans, the upcoming Veterans Day, but more importantly, it represents a celebration of the Rebozzini-Darrow American Legion Post that was founded in 1919 at the conclusion of World War I. It is that post is 100 years old. It's still active. I understand that they have over 70 members at this point, down from a low of 3 to 5, as I understand, just after the Vietnam War. But I congratulate Ron DiMartino, who's the post commander at this point, for building that organization and keeping that organization a viable organization for veterans to share their experiences and camaraderie amongst each other. On Monday, the 11th, there will be the traditional celebration on the green, at the southern end of the green, at the World War I Memorial. I urge everyone to take a look at that memorial, because there is now a new plaque that the Board of Selectmen approved, and it celebrates the Legion Post 100 anniversary. So take a look at that plaque, and while you're there, take a look at all of them, and remember why those monuments are out there. We have so much to be thankful for those veterans who sacrificed so much. Not only those who died in battle, but those who participated and gave their all on our behalf. So I urge folks to take an opportunity to remember the veterans, not only on the 11th, but anytime you're walking by those monuments. Lastly, we're in the holiday season. Thanksgiving is just around the corner. And all of the celebrations in the December time frame, no matter what religion you belong to, what you celebrate. But let's remember some things. We have so much to be thankful for as members of this community, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to work on your behalf. Let's remember those who are less fortunate than we are. Thanksgiving can be a time of giving thanks, but it can also be a time of giving to others. I'm fond of saying it doesn't cost anything to be kind. So let's remember that as we go through the holiday season. And I wish all of you a wonderful holiday season, and look forward to talking to you again next year, where I'll probably have some more information, more detailed information about the budgets. Thank you.